think I have an idea. I want to bring a carpenter if you've got this. Yes, everyone else ready? Let's get started. Policy is order. I get an introduction from the plaintiff.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning or good afternoon. Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Max Rich, and I'm joined at council table by my esteemed colleague, Ms. Brooke Jones.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
We're also going to be joined today by Mr. Sam Farnsworth.
Good morning, afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
And at council table, we're joined by our party representative, Special Agent Tad Thorne.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Afternoon.
Those are all our introductions.
That's
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Charles Stock, Defense, Lambert Family Carnival, joined by my co-counsel.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Anaya Nelson.
And our witness.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Angel Ashton.
Good afternoon, I'm Legacy.
any retrial matters?
Yes, Your Honor, just one thing. If we could direct your attention to the pretrial orders, the first one, we'd just like to flag that the plaintiff moved to hold defendant vicariously liable for the conduct of the following current and former defendant employees, Angel Ashmore, Nick Snappy, and Legacy Lambert, and that motion was granted. The vicarious liability of those employees.
That's your
Yes.
And with that, we're ready to proceed to opens.
anything for defense?
Move to invoke 603 and 615, constructive swearing in and sequestration of all non-party witnesses. Ms. Lambert will be present throughout the trial.
Sounds good. Any objections?
No objections. We'd just like to note that Special Agent Thorne will be present during trial.
May we move freely throughout the well-driven examinations? Check. One last thing. We'll be pursuing an affirmative defense. Assumption of the risk.
Sounds good.
With that, we're ready to go.
Plaintiff, whenever you're ready.
Yes, Your Honor. May I please the court, opposing counsel, members of the jury. They took a risk that took a life. It's July 14th, 2023. A man named Maximilian is standing on a stage, performing at a carnival like he's done every single night for a month in a row. His assistant, Gabby Gray, is pointing a gun directly at him, about to fire. It's all just an act. The gun will fire blank, and Mr. Maximilian will get a standing ovation. That's not what happened. Instead of a blank, Mr. Maximilian watched as a real bullet barreled towards his face. And that shot was his last. You'll hear today that Mr. Maximilian had been lied to by this defendant. You'll learn that the defendant promised to provide Mr. Maximilian with a brand new gun. Instead, she gave him a worn down secondhand. You'll learn that she promised to load that gun only with blanks. But instead, it fired a real bullet. You'll learn the defendant knew that that trick was dangerous. You'll hear she just did it. Because the defendant, this wasn't about protecting a man's life, it was about money. You'll hear the reason that they didn't take any of those safety precautions is because they were operating on a tight budget. reason they made Mr. Maximilian perform that trick was because they needed more revenue. You'll hear they threatened him with a breach of contract lawsuit if he didn't go through. That's why we charge this defendant with recklessness constituting a wrongdoing. That means that we as the plaintiff have taken on a burden to prove that two things are more likely than not. First, that the defendant breached her duty of care to Mr. Maximilian by acting with reckless disregard for his safety. And that second, that breach of that duty directly caused Mr. Maximilian's death. We're going to meet that burden. We're going to do that by answering two simple questions. First, what should the defendant have done? Second, what did she actually do? Let's start with that first point. What should the defendant have done? Today, you're going to hear from a special agent who was in charge of investigating this case, Mr. Tab. You're going to hear that he went undercover at the carnival and observed the issues with safety while he was there. You'll hear that the defendant kept real bullets and blanks stored in the exact same place right next to each other. I'm going to have to ask you, if the defendant didn't keep those blanks and those bullets separate, what did she actually do? You're going to hear from Mr. Maximilian's magician's assistant, Gabby Brown. She'll tell you that she trusted the defendant. She wanted to check the gun before the performance, but the defendant's prop master took it out of her hands and put it back into them already loaded. You'll learn that she trusted the defendant to take care of her props, not to take a risk with him. When she fired that gun, it took Mr. Maximilian's life. Took a risk. That took a life. Members of the jury, if a company forgets to clean a gun, maybe that's it. If a company is running low on employees and so they cut a few corners, maybe that's it. But when a company threatens a performer into performing a dangerous trick, is so careless that they mix up blanks and bullets and knowingly skimps on safety measures all just to save money, that's recklessness. It's wrong. And it's why we'll ask you to find the defendant liable. Thank you.
Please, court. Counsel. Members of the jury. There is no such thing as a safe shot. It's a sunny afternoon at Lambert Family Farm. Magician Maximilian is staring down the barrel of a gun. He's practicing what's called the bullet catch trick. And his assistant is about to take the shot. His hands aren't shaking. His heart isn't racing. He gestures to his assistant. Point right here. That's what's going to make it seem most realistic. Members of the jury, we all agree what happened to Maximilian was false. But what the evidence will show today is that he was a professional. He did stuff that most of us wouldn't even dream of. Sawing people in half, escaping from suffocation. You'll learn he knew. Even if everything with his tricks was set up properly, still go horribly wrong. You'll learn he knew. Every time he stared down the barrel of a gun, it could be his last trick. He knew what every magician who's done the bullet catch trick knows. There's no such thing as a safe shot. Now the plaintiff, they have a burden of proof in this case. They have to prove their case by a preponderance of the evidence that Lambert Family Carnival made mistakes, and that those mistakes actually caused the death. Because of what the plaintiff knew and did, we've raised an affirmative defense, assumption of the risk. We're going to prove to you today that the plaintiff knew and accepted the risks associated with his act. We're going to meet that burden to prove that today. Plaintiff isn't going to meet theirs for 3 reasons. Lambert Family Carnival acted safely. They did not cause the death. The plaintiff assumed the very risks that did. So let's take those one at a time, starting with the first. Lambert Family Carnival acted safely. Because members of the jury, you're going to hear from the owner of Lambert Family Carnival, Miss Legacy Lambert. She'll be upfront and honest with you today. Yes, costs are a concern. It's a business. But she'll tell you there are ways to balance the budget that don't ignore safety. The claim that she would voluntarily injure her star performer, she'll tell you that's not true. She'll tell you she took reasonable steps to keep her performer safe. Now, what the plaintiff didn't tell you just a moment ago is that one of their witnesses they spoke about cannot be trusted. His name is Tav Thorne. You're going to learn he has a vendetta against Legacy Lambert. That he would say anything to hurt her. That brings us to fact number 2. Legacy Family Carnival did not cause the death. This is how the bullet track is supposed to work. I mean, the assistant points the gun in the magician's direction, either directly at the magician or slightly over the shoulder. That seems like a slight distinction, but for safety, it's important. Members of the jury, you're going to learn the plaintiff made the call to have it pointed directly at. That brings us to fact number 3. The plaintiff assumed the risk. You're going to hear from the prop manager at Lambert Family Carnival, and he'll tell you he talked to the plaintiff. He told the plaintiff it's dangerous. He told the plaintiff, even if I do everything right, it's dangerous. And you'll learn the plaintiff wanted to do that trick. And that's why we're going to ask you to find Lambert Family Carnival not liable. Because there's no such thing as a safe job. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe you can call your first witness whenever you're ready.
Yes, Your Honor. Plaintiff calls Miss Gabby Gray to the stand. Actually, Your Honor.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury.
Good afternoon. I'm Gabby Gray.
What do you do for a living?
I am a professional magician. Full-time, I do magic.
Have you always been a magician?
No, you would actually be surprised. It's one of those fields that takes a while to break into. First, I worked at a prop store, and then after that, I worked at a different prop store, and then a third, and then after that, I was an assistant to a magician for a while.
Who was that magician?
His name was Max Maximilian. I guess better known to the public as Max the Magnificent. I was his assistant for 5 years. 5 years.
How the two of you meet?
Met. I was working at one of those prop stores at the time and stalking, and I bumped into someone. I turned around and he's a little taller than me. So right at eye level, I'm looking at his bow tie. And the first thing out of my mouth to this perfect stranger, so is, "Oh, your tie's crooked." And I reach out and I fix it. And over time I realized what I did. I wanted to melt into the floor, but he was laughing. So funny.
What would the two of you do together?
Everything. Everything. We lived together, we traveled together, all around. If you're talking about magic, I was on stage with him every night, and every night I would fix that stupid book. I miss him very much.
Why do you miss him?
Because a year ago, Max passed away in an accident on stage. When we were working for Liquor King.
How did he pass away?
We were doing this trick. It's called the bullet catch, where the assistant points a gun, a gun with a blank at the performer and fires the blank. And they gave us a gun and they set it all up.
Ma'am, before we talk more about that night and how Mr. Maximilian passed away, I want to talk a little bit more about him. What kind of magician was he?
Well, he was a contract magician, which is the professional name for a traveling magician. We do a show here, a show there, a couple weekends, one place, until in summer last year we took residency. Not a Vegas residency, we did a residency in Butler County, Nevada.
Residency for who?
For Lambert Family Carnival. We were with them for about a month.
And who at Lambert Family Carnival hired you?
The owner, Legacy Lambert.
What did the defendant ask you to do after she hired you?
Well, we had this routine, and from my perspective, it was going very well. One day she called us into her office. She said she needed something new, that she was worried about the crowds getting low. She asked us for something eye-catching, like the bullet catch.
Did you agree to do the bullet catch?
Well, at first we told her no. And then she looked us right in the face and she said, I have final say, and also you can breach a contract. I don't know what you think the magician makes, but it's not enough for lawsuit. So, we agreed. It's something we've done. I've done it twice. Max had done it five other times in his career without me. We just asked them for a couple of things. We needed a brand new gun and we needed blanks, not real bullets, blanks.
And when would you need those?
We need those by performance, preferably earlier because we had time to practice, but that didn't end up happening.
When did you get those?
The blanks only came in on the day up. I remember I went into the prom tent, I went to the lockbox, I opened it up and there was the gun. And I finally saw some blanks in the tent. I thought, maybe I could check it. It smelled like gunpowder. No one was supposed to have fired it. But before I got the chance, the prop master walked over and snatched it out of my hand.
What did you do when the prop master snatched the gun out of your hand?
I asked what he was doing. I was like, I need to practice. Max and I are going to practice before I aim it at him on stage. And he said, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. It's just not ready yet. I didn't see him again before the show. I was standing backstage and he puts it in my hand. He says, all good, Gabby, you're ready to go. I didn't know what else to do.
What did you do?
I continued the show. I talked to Max and all my concerns. He said, Legacy said he was the best in the business, and so we should trust Angel. And that's what I did.
And let's talk more about that show. How did it start?
Backstage, over, fixes one time. And then Kurt rose and
What happened during the show?
we start with illusions, the really flashy stuff, and then card tricks, and then he does some escapes. I'm just telling you what we usually do, because the truth is I don't really remember that show very well, because every time I think about it, I only think about the end.
How did it end?
The bullet catch. And we staged it to look like an argument, where Max would ask me to do something and I would refuse. And then he'd ask me to do something else and I would refuse. We'd get into a fight and I'd say, I'm tired of living in your shadow, Max. And he'd say, Gabby, what do you mean? And I'd say, it's time for Gabby to become Gabby the Great. And so I
picked it up and I pointed it at him just like he told me to, and I shot him. I shot Max.
What happened after you shot?
He fell. Right away he fell. There was blood sprayed. I remember vomiting over the side of his face. And at some point somebody pulled me away, and I asked not to leave because I couldn't breathe without him.
And when you fired that gun, did you think there was a bullet inside?
I didn't think it was. And they all said Angel was the best, so I trusted him. The only way I've been able to sleep at night is knowing that I didn't know. It wasn't my job to make sure that the equipment was okay. It was theirs.
Thank you for your time. No further questions. Possible, that'd be great.
Yes or no?
Good afternoon, Ms. Wright. My name is Anaya Nelson. I'll be asking you some questions today on behalf of the board. I understand. I'll begin by talking about the decisions that Max made leading up to July 14th. Because it's true that the bullet catch was a trick that the two of you had performed before, right?
Twice.
The two of you practiced that trick before.
Yes. Every other time we got to practice it, many times in advance. This time we practiced it 7 times with our own legs.
And when you practiced that trick, you pull out a gun, right?
Yes.
And you pull out a real gun, right?
Yes, ma'am. That's so long. Literally, nice. What's nice? That's the idea. That's how it was.
And you pulled out that real gun. You didn't aim it to the left of Max, did you?
No. What we found is that the only way to make it look real was to point it at him. Every time we practiced, it went totally fine.
And like you just said, when you were practicing that trick, aiming it directly at him, you didn't do that because you thought it was safer, did you?
No, it's because it makes it look real. Otherwise, the trick just.
That's right, and you aimed that gun directly at Max because you thought it would look more realistic. Right? That was what we decided. And you practiced that trick from July 3rd to July 14th, right?
That's right.
And then when you were practicing that trick, aiming that gun directly at Max, well, he never said don't aim that gun directly at me, did he?
No, the two of us had decided that we needed to aim it.
That's right, and he never said we need to change that trick, it's too dangerous.
Personally, I went to Legacy a few times to ask if there was any way we could not do it. First time she said she'd sue me. Second, she promised to bring Max. So, and every time we practiced and we loaded ourselves, it got fine. At the time, of course I didn't want to ruin Max's career, but now I, take the career, screw it. But we went ahead with it, you're right.
Remember earlier, like you said, you and Max agreed that you would point the gun directly at him, right?
We did.
Remember, the two of you agreed to that. I want to talk about whether or not Max had a reason to change safety protocol. Because when you were practicing that trick leading up to July 14th, well, the two of you, like I said earlier, you would aim that gun directly at him, right?
Yes, I would aim it at him. Yes.
And you know that Max, well, he wasn't satisfied with his current shape, right?
He was looking for other options in the beginning. I mean, we considered it. We ended up ruling it out.
And then Max told you he wanted his shows to be more spontaneous, right?
Yeah.
He said he wanted his shows to be more eye-catching, right?
That's true. I mean, I don't know how you get more eye-catching than escaping from animals underwater, but he was always looking to push himself to be better.
Ma'am, at the end of June of 2023, Ms. Lambert called you into her office, right?
Yes.
Ms. Lambert, she said that she wanted your show to be flashy, right?
Right. pushed us to do the trick.
Ma'am, I want to be clear. When Miss Lambert said your show wasn't flashy enough, Max said, I agree, right?
Right, you have been looking to add something new to the routine for a little while.
Max said, I have the exact same thought, right?
He did.
Ma'am, in that conversation with Miss Lambert, you and Max were actually the first people to bring up that bullet catch trick at all, right?
Yes, but she asked us to list every trick we could do. We mentioned that we'd done that before and she stopped us. She said that had to be the one. We tried to tell her no.
Well, ma'am, that's a yes to my question. You and Max were the first people to bring up that bullet catch trick.
True. That's right, we were going through all the tricks.
Ma'am, earlier, you said that Miss Lambert was the person who pushed you to do that trick underneath it. Miss Lambert, she never told you how that trick had to be performed, did she? Ma'am, she never told you where you had to aim that gun when you performed it, did she?
No.
Ma'am, she never told you that you had to aim that gun directly at Max, did she?
No, she only told us that we had to perform it, and that was the way we had to perform it first.
So that's a yes to my question, ma'am. Miss Lambert never said you had to aim that gun directly at Max.
That's true, she just said we had to.
Well, ma'am, Miss Lambert never told you how you had to perform that trick. I want to talk about why you're pointing the finger at the Lambert family carnival today. Because it's true that you loved Max, right?
Yes.
And the two of you worked together for 5 years. And like you testified earlier, you lived for Max, right? The two of you were as close as two people could be.
Well, you do everything within prison for 5 years, it's hard not to.
And you loved Max so much that you asked him to marry you, right?
That was his moment. He said no. Which was my time.
And after Max passed away, you didn't point the finger at the man that you wanted to marry, did you?
What do you mean, point the finger?
Well, ma'am, to be clear, you loved Max before trial began today, right?
First.
You loved Max before you walked through those courtroom doors. Sitting here in court today, you're pointing the finger at the Lambert family carnival instead of the man you wanted to marry, right?
I don't understand why you're pointing the finger. They made us promises that the equipment would be safe. I didn't even get to testify, but I don't know what you mean.
Ma'am, you didn't take the stand today and say that Max assumed the risks of that trick, did you?
What is that?
And when you testified earlier, you said that Miss Lambert was the person who made you do that trick. You didn't say it was Max's fault about what happened on July 14th.
No.
All right, Ms. Gray. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Any regret?
No regret, we just asked them straight, they want to say.
It's great work, excuse. That's all we'll wait.
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the defense calls Mr. Angel Ashmore to the stand. May I proceed?
Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. Could you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Hi, I'm Angel Ashman.
What do you do for a living?
I work at a carnival, actually, the Lambert family carnival. I'm what you call a prop master.
How'd you originally get into that job?
I mean, believe it or not, it's because of Max. Maximilian. He was a magician who performed all over, and I mean, he was my hero. It took my parents some convincing, believe you, but I get to do what I love.
Mr. Ashmore, why did you choose to testify here in court today?
A year ago, Max was working for the Lambert Family Carnival. He was doing a trick called the bullet catch. And he got it. I'm here to tell you everything I did to try and keep him safe.
So you just said that Max passed away while performing a trick called the bullet catch. What is that?
It's kind of what it sounds like. The assistant is supposed to fire a gun at the magician, and then it's supposed to look like the magician catches the bullet. But you're not actually firing any real bullets. The gun should be filled with blanks.
So you said that you took steps to try and keep Max alive. What was your role when it came to the bullet catch?
I mean, I was in charge of the props. So my job was to purchase a gun, to clean it, to maintain it, and to make sure it was loaded.
So do you know when Max was scheduled to perform the bullet catch?
I do. It was July 14th.
Well, sir, if Max was scheduled to perform the bullet catch on July 14th, I want to talk about all of the preparations that you did leading up to that day. Were you able to find a gun before July 14th?
I was. I had done my research and I found a local gun range that would sell us a gun and some blanks. I mean, I felt the reputation was good. I felt good about my purchase.
Well, sir, did you take any steps to maintain that gun before July 14th?
Of course, man. When I bought the gun, the first thing I did was clean it. I mean, I took it apart, I cleaned the inside, I cleaned the outside, and then I gave it to Max and his assistant. I did the same thing on the 14th. I cleaned every inch I could.
So you told us that you cleaned that gun leading up to July 14th. I want to move on and talk about the loading of that gun. So on July 14th, what kinds of bullets did you have in storage at the car?
We had blanks and bullets.
Sir, which one of those did you load in that gun?
I put in blanks.
Sir, sitting here in court today, how sure are you?
100%. I know it. I know it.
So you just said you're 100% sure that the bullets that you put in that gun were blank rounds. I want to talk about whether or not Max would have known the risks of that bullet catch. Sir, do you have any experience with guns?
I do. I'm actually certified with the National Carnival Association to use firearms. I have been for the last 5 years. When I first joined the carnival, I actually got to train with a prop expert. I mean, he taught me everything I knew about props, including hunting stuff.
Well, sir, if you have all that experience with guns, what did you think of the bullet catch?
I thought it was dangerous. I mean, rule number 1, we're taught of gun safety. Don't point the gun at someone you don't want to die. I thought that even if you did everything right, it wasn't a safe shot, and I told Max that.
Objection, Your Honor. Lack of foundation of Rule 702. Yeah. The testimony that even if you did anything safe, and everything correct, it still wasn't safe, requires expert foundation. That's an accurate conclusion at this witness stand. Response.
Your Honor, this witness doesn't need specialized knowledge for that testimony to do this. He just testified that rule number 1 that he was taught in his training as a prop master with firearms is that you don't point the gun at something you don't want dead. It's based on his perception and based on the training that he received with firearms.
Yes, Your Honor. This testimony goes a step further than that, saying that even if everything was done correctly, then something still could have gone wrong and still could have died. That requires expert foundation, and the certification this witness has isn't enough to have a record foundation. Yes, sir.
Sir, did you get a chance to finish your answer?
Just about only that I thought that even in the best circumstances, it just wasn't a safe shot. when I went to Max, I told him that.
Sir, after you told Max that it may not have been a safe shot, did Max cancel that trip?
No,
Well, did Max tell you that they were going to change that trip?
no,
Mr. Ashmore, what did Max do?
the trick went ahead on the 14th.
Sir, if you warned Max that the bullet catch could potentially be dangerous, then I want to move on and talk about what happened on July 14th. I understand this might be difficult, so if at any point you need a moment, just let me know. What were you doing on July 14th?
I mean, I spent more time maintaining the gun. I cleaned it, I maintained it, I loaded it, I test fired it, I loaded it again with blanks. I thought I did everything I could.
Mr. Ashmore, did you see Max's show that night?
No. Thank God. I was busy maintaining the props, so I could only hear what was happening.
So what did you hear?
I heard them setting it up. I heard the shot. And then I heard screams. I heard everybody scream.
Mr. Ashmore, what happened?
I mean, I ran towards the stage. There were all these people coming my way. I started pushing them out of the way. And then I mean,
Mr. Ashmore?
Max had collapsed on the ground. He was bleeding a lot. I tried to pick up his head. I thought that if I held his head, it might stop the bleeding. It didn't. He just kept on bleeding. And then I heard him say something.
Mr. Ashmore, what did Max say?
I just wanted a perfect shot. I felt him go. I mean, the paramedics got there later, but I felt him go.
Thank you, Mr. Ashmore. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Yeah, sure.
Did you, sir?
I'm okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashmore.
Good afternoon.
I want to begin by talking about your responsibilities on set. Because you said on direct examination you were a prop master, right?
I was prop master and armorer. That was my title.
So armorers aren't responsible for firearms on set, true?
Yes, sir. We try to do our best to maintain it.
That was your job, wasn't it?
It was. I did my best.
Then let's talk about what your job meant doing right before the trip on July 14th. Because, sir, the day before you received a shipment, didn't you?
We did.
Now, this shipment, these were the cartridges you were going to use in the trip, right?
We received that shipment on July 11th.
And sir, in that shipment, there were blanks, right?
Yes, sir. I ordered them from that same gun range. There were both blanks and line bullets.
I want to make sure that part is clear. When you were pulling out the blanks for this trip, they were in the same shipment as actual bullets, true?
Yes, sir. They had me ordered as part of the package deal, I guess. I spent time making sure the blanks and the bullets were completely separate. I know that.
Well, let's talk about what that meant doing. Because on July 14th, you were the one who loaded the gun using the trip, right?
Yes, sir.
Sir, you said that you could tell the difference between blanks and bullets, correct?
Absolutely.
You said that you could do that based on your experience, do I have that right?
Yes, sir, I've taken training, operation of firearms, excuse me. Plus, they're visually very different. Yes, sir.
Okay, let's start by talking about that
Of
training. Because
course.
we can agree, when you were hired by the defendant, you had 0 years of experience with firearms, right?
My first year with the carnival, that's right. I spent that year apprenticing, took that certification course.
This certification course that you did, that was supposed to be a 3-hour online video, right?
Yes, sir, that's what the association offered.
But you put that video on fast forward, didn't you?
Right, sir, the video had a lot of very slow slides. It was possible to do.
When you say it was possible to do it quicker, you put it on 3 times speed. Is that true?
That's how fast I do video, yes.
That video was your experience with firearms, correct?
That's not exactly true. No.
Well, you don't own a firearm yourself, do you?
Oh, no, I don't. But when I was training with the carnival, I spent all that time with our prop expert. He taught me everything.
Sir, you don't own a firearm, yes, sir?
I don't.
Okay, then let's talk about what might have happened on July 14th, because you said on direct, you were 100% sure you put blanks in the gun, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So you know that when Gabby Gray fired that gun, the person standing in front of it died, right?
I'm aware.
Sir, blanks don't fire bullets, do they?
No, sir, I don't know what happened.
Well, let's talk about what might have happened. Because in the weeks leading up to this, you were stretched pretty thin, weren't you?
Not in the weeks, sir. No.
You'd agree you were stretched pretty thin.
In the couple days leading up to July 14th, we had a lot going on. That's true.
You felt like there was a lack of support for you?
I remember doing a lot of different responsibilities. I have a big job.
So the defendant fired all of your prop assistants, sure?
Back in June, that's right.
You were overwhelmed, weren't you?
I wouldn't say I was overwhelmed. I was busy, certainly, sir, but I knew my job.
Well, sir, your job, as we talked about, was loading that gun, right?
It was, I did.
You were the last person to fire that gun before the trip, sure?
Yeah, I was.
As far as you know, the last person to handle that gun, right?
Before the trick, sir, that's as far as I know.
You were the person who loaded it, true?
I loaded that weapon with blanks, sir, yes.
That was the gun that was used and killed Max Maximilian. True?
It was.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor. I just asked that Mr. Ashmore be allowed to step back.
Yes. So it is 4:28 on my clock. I believe. Great, right? So let's be back by 4:30.
Sorry.
Make sure you fill out the first part of your ballot. Have another minute, but is everyone back and ready to go, or do we want the extra?
I think it's ready to go now.
That's right. All our judges are here, so let's go.
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Special Agent Tad Thorne to stand.
Mr. was okay. In an age that's no special.
All right, Mr. Thorne. Can you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Sure.
Hi, my name is Tamberlin Thorne. It's very nice to meet you.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Thorne?
Oh, I have the most exciting job on the planet. I'm a financial investigator with the Midland State Bureau of Investigation. It brings me joy every single day.
How'd you get into that line of work?
Well, I started out as a beat cop, and then I moved to the white collar crimes unit. And you know, it's nothing like white collar the show. There's no art heists. There's no flashy robberies. Mostly, it's just local millionaires trying to argue that their tax evasion is actually tax avoidance. So after a couple of years of that, I made the move to the bureau.
And so how are you involved in this case?
Well, I received an anonymous tip that Legacy Lambert was engaged in financial misconduct.
You're saying?
That a response?
Yes, Your Honor. We're not actually using this specific statement for the truth of the matter asserted. We're not actually charging the defendant with financial misconduct here today. We're simply using it for the effect it had on the listener and the subsequent action that Mr. Thorne took. That after he took this anonymous tip, he, if I may proffer, went undercover at the carnival and then started investigating not just financial misconduct, but also things related to safety, which he's going to talk about as they're relevant to today's trial.
In that case, we'd ask for a limited instruction to ensure the jury does not take it for its
Limited instructions granted, so please vote.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Thorne, you were telling us how you're involved in this case.
Yeah, I got the anonymous tip. I took it to my supervisor. My supervisor said, "All right, Tab, you can go undercover." So I went undercover at the carnival as a stock boy. While I was trying to figure out what was going on.
Mr. Thorne, I want to address something off the bat. Were you here today during the defense's opening statement?
Yeah.
Did you hear them say that you have a vendetta against the defendant?
Yeah, I heard those things.
Or is that true?
No. I assume that they're referring to the prior investigations against Ms. Lambert, again, for financial misconduct, but I mean, nothing ever came of those investigations. Sure, she kept a tight budget, but there was certainly nothing rising to the level of financial misconduct.
And why are we here in court today?
Well, I'm actually not here to talk about financial misconduct at all. I was called in to testify. As you know, Maximilian died during the performance. Since I was undercover, they want me to talk about kind of the general safety practices that I observed at the carnival while I was undercover.
All right, now I want to talk about if what we've heard in trial so far today lines up with what you saw when you were undercover. Were you hearing the testimony of Ms. Gabby Gray?
I was, yeah.
Did you hear Ms. Gray say that the defendant didn't give them a new gun for that trip?
Sure did.
Is that what you saw?
Sure, I never saw a new gun in the 3 months that I was working there.
Did you ever see any gun?
Well, I mean, there was a Glock 22, but that thing was not new. I mean, I've been employed since the Johnson administration. I think that thing had more Social Security benefits.
objection, Your Honor, pursuant to Rule 403. May I be heard? Sure. The witness just testified that the gun wasn't new and proper. Sure. This witness actually never even took a close look at that gun at all and can't testify to any specific details about that gun. To say that it wasn't new, that's far more misleading than it is probative, and it violates 403.
First of all, the bar for 403 is very high. It would be substantially more misleading than it is probative, and that's not the case. Mr. Stock's concern goes to weight on admissibility. He'd like to cross out how this witness knew that the gun was or was not new. But also, Your Honor, if I may proffer,
Sure.
we expect the defendant today to admit that that gun was not in fact new. And Mr. Thorne can say that based on his rational perceptions of working at that carnival and seeing that gun again. If Mr. Stock wants to cross on that, he's welcome to. That's a matter of belief.
Response. To make the claim that he did look at that gun, that's more misleading, because if I may proffer, he will admit he didn't. He can't tell us anything specific about that gun at all. So to say otherwise is substantially more misleading than it is probative, and frankly, isn't honest.
I'm going to overrule your objection.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Thorne, you were telling us about that gun you saw. You said it wasn't new.
Sure, I mean, I didn't take a close look at it or anything, but from afar, I mean, that thing was definitely not brand spanking.
All right, and we're here for the cross-examination of Mr. Ashman.
Yeah, I was.
Did you hear him say that he purchased both blanks and real bullets?
That's right, from a gun store nearby.
Is that consistent with what you saw?
Sure. You know, I only saw the real bullets themselves very infrequently. But there were boxes of both blanks and real bullets there next to the lockbox. I mean, honestly, it was kind of hard to tell the two boxes apart by their face.
So you just told us that those blanks and those bullets were right next to each other. Did you hear Mr. Ashmore say that he cleaned that gun?
I heard him say.
Is that what you saw?
With all due respect to Mr. Ashmore, if that's what he calls cleaning, then my kids are professional house cleaners. I mean, in all the time that I was there, I really never saw him clean or disassemble it, right?
Objection, Your Honor, pursuant to 403, may I be heard? Sure. Finally, Crawford. Yeah. The witness will admit that he was actually only in the prop tent max 20 minutes every day. If Angel Ashmore did clean that gun when he wasn't there to see it, well, that would make sense. And to say that he never cleaned it is more misleading than it is broken.
Again, Your Honor, this doesn't rise to the level of being substantially misleading under Rule 403. That's a matter of weight. The witness didn't say that Mr. Ashmore never cleaned it. He just said he never saw him clean it. Again, they can cross on how many times they saw him.
It's my understanding that they said never saw. Is that your understanding?
The way it's being phrased is making it sound like that gun was never cleaned, and that's what's misleading. Because this witness wasn't even there to see.
I think there's a distinction between never saw and never did, so I will invite you to clarify that on process.
Yes, Your Honor, we will.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Foreman, if you never saw Mr. Ashmore clean that gun, I want to talk about what you did see. Did you ever see him managing any props?
Props, yeah, sure. Managing, maybe a little less. I mean, most of the time I saw him in the tent, Ashmore would kind of just like stand around. I mean, the tent itself was pretty disorganized.
What do you mean it was disorganized?
I just mean there were things strewn everywhere. I mean, for example, one day I was looking for purple tape for one of our mentalist acts. And to kind of find the purple teddy bear, I had to dig through a whole mountain of stuff. It looked like people would just walk in there and toss stuff on the top of the pile. Angel didn't seem too concerned about it.
You know what Mr. Ashmore was doing? He wasn't organizing those props.
I mean, I never saw him really take care of the pile of props. Like I said before, he interacted with the gun and the bullets a couple of times. One time he was kind of standing there holding a real bullet in his hands. And there were two boxes. One of them was of blanks and the other one was real bullets. And he was just kind of looking back and forth between the two. Looked a little confused, so I went up to him and I was like, hey, can I help? Can I help you when you're confused? And he said, get lost, Yank. So I kind of got lost.
And I want to talk about if it's possible that Mr. Ashmore mixed up a blank for a bullet. Did you ever see any sort of purchase records for those bullets?
Yeah, there was a purchase expense request that he submitted to Ms. Lamb for both the gun and the bullets.
Would you recognize a copy of that request if I were to show it to you today?
Yeah.
Your Honor, let's remember like approaching the closing counsel and the witness enforcement framework for identification purposes as exhibit. Your Honor, Mr. Ashmore, Mr. Thorne, what have I just handed you?
This is that expense request for both the guns and the bullets.
Does it look fair and accurate to the last time you saw it?
Yeah.
Your Honor, the plaintiff needs to enter exhibit 3 evidence.
Now, Your Honor, pursuant to stipulations, no hearsay objection will have. It's admitted.
Mr. Thorne, can you walk us through this? What exactly did the prop manager report?
Sure. So there were like 3 sort of options here of how to purchase the gun and the bullets. There's the high price option, mid price option, and the low end price option.
Do you know which one the defendant went with?
For the bullets specifically, I mean, like you heard today, you bought them from the gun store. That's the lowest price option, and he sort of noted that here. He said, for the lower end price option, it's most likely to receive a discount, and there's the greatest chance of live ammunition being mixed in with blanks.
Let's talk about what happened after the defendant chose that low price option. Were you there for the show on July 14th?
I was there for sure. I saw the whole thing.
What exactly did you see?
Everything. I mean, saw Max's assistant pointing the gun at him. Saw the gun fire. Saw Max drop to the ground. That should never have been it. Max was a good kid. You know, in this line of work and how long I've been there, you kind of learn not to have regrets, but that one was a damn shame.
Thank you, Mr. Thorne. I have nothing further on.
Great. Yes, Your Honor.
Would you like this back, Ms. Jones, or Ms. Stocks, or anything?
Stop.
Oh, stop. We're both stock boys for a while.
I can take that back to you, Mr. Thorne. Your Honor, actually, permission to publish a copy of the brief in that procedure.
Mr. Thorne, good afternoon.
It is a good afternoon, isn't it, Mr. Stock?
Let's talk about why you're testifying against Legacy Land. Because you go way back with Legacy Land.
Sure. I know neither of us looks like it. Maybe I look like it. But we were both Phillips Exeter class of 1958.
That's high school.
Yes, sir.
Weren't exactly friends, were you?
I wouldn't say I was friends with most of the people at that school, but no.
Especially not her. Sure. I mean, her actions made you end up in detention.
Yeah, but to be fair, my actions probably made me end up in detention too.
Well, so you'd say she almost cost you your high school scholarship.
That's true. Because of that whole stint, they almost took away my $275 scholarship to Phillips Exeter. It was a lot cheaper back then. Don't even get me started on this apps and CSS over everything for kids.
Sir, I direct you to answer the question I'm asking. That's a yes.
Sure. Yeah.
Ever since then, you've had a vendetta against Legacy Land.
Objection, Your Honor, argument.
Let's see where this goes.
Yes, Your Honor.
Vendetta, you said?
Vendetta. Let's talk about it. Your old bosses, they told you to drop this case against Legacy Land.
That's not true.
Is it your testimony they did not tell you to quit investigating Legacy Land?
It wasn't this case, sir.
Your old case, we're going way back here.
Sure. In 2015, I opened an investigation against Ms. Lambert. We dropped that case.
They told you to drop that case.
That's correct.
And initially, you ignored them.
That's not true, sir. I got fired for it.
Your new boss is after getting fired for continuing to pursue the case, told you quit chasing this ghost from your past.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Command.
Oh,
Yes, Your Honor.
had no one at the Bureau ever said anything about the ghosts from my past.
That was the exact wording they used. This ghost from your past.
Sure.
You ignored it.
Your Honor, reason my objection to hearsay specifically to the ghost for your past, if I may explain.
Yeah.
That is actually being used for the truth of the matter, sir, to say that Legacy Lambert was a ghost from his past, or that he thought that is in fact being used for the truth. It's not simply being used as a claim.
Response. We're actually not concerned with the truth. We're concerned about the effect. When his bosses told him, quit chasing this guy, he didn't. He kept going. He kept trying to pursue Legacy Lambert. It's about the effect.
I'm the sustaining master.
Yes, Your Honor, motion to strike the question.
I don't need questions or certain, but if there's an answer, then it's right.
Yes, Your Honor.
When your new bosses told you to drop the case, you ignored them.
I wouldn't say that's true, sir.
I mean, you tried to continue pursuing Legacy even after they told you not to. Nope. You submitted a request to keep pursuing Legacy.
That was the first thing, sir. They told me to drop it, I submitted the request. I dropped it. There were better things to do.
All right, let's talk about it. When you found out that Legacy, her company, was being sued, I mean, you reached out yourself to be involved in this case.
Sure. We had determined as part of the investigation that, Legacy's involvement didn't merit any criminal charges. That's kind of what my job is. There was a civil charge being brought, so I reached out.
Mr. Thorne, if I could just have you answer the questions I'm asking, that's a yes, you reached out yourself.
Yes.
You refuse to accept the possibility that Legacy is guilty.
I said that about the 2015 case, sir.
That's it.
Sure, 2015.
So let's talk about whether you were entirely honest in your pursuit of Legacy land.
I was.
Because you submitted that request to your new bosses asking to keep pursuing her.
That's correct.
That request got denied.
That's right.
And right when that request got denied, suddenly you have this anonymous tip.
That's not true, sir. It wasn't when that request got denied. Tip came in about a month and a half later.
After your request got denied.
Sure.
And it happened to be about the investigation that got denied.
No, sir. It was about Legacy land.
Right.
Yeah.
So you never got an anonymous tip like that before.
No, sir.
Right when your bosses tell you stop pursuing Legacy, you get a tip that lets you keep pursuing Legacy?
No, sir. Again, I have to disagree with the characterization of the white plan. I submitted my request, got denied, and a month and a half later, the tip came in and I brought it.
So let's talk about whether that tip existed at all. You can't tell us even the most basic information about that.
No, sir. Well, when we sit here, I can't tell you. It's on record at the police office.
Well, you can't show it to us.
Not right now.
Can't tell us any of the specific details that are supposedly within it.
No, sir.
Can't tell us what day you got it.
No.
You can't even tell us if you got it over a phone call or in your email.
No, sir. I mean, look, this was about a year and a half ago. I can't tell you right now. This is not going to be going to the police records. It's there.
Let's talk about whether you were thorough during your investigation, because sir, you admit safety issues, those were not the focus of your investigation.
No, sir.
The gun, that was not the focus of your investigation. So you actually never took a close look at that gun.
No, sir. I never inspected it myself.
You can't tell us specific details about that gun.
I don't think so.
I mean, you told us on your direct examination that you never saw Angel Ashmore clean the gun. Did I get that right?
That's correct.
You were only in the prop tent max 20 minutes each day.
Sure. I was there every time Angel was
If Angel Ashmore did clean that gun when you weren't there, you wouldn't know about it, would you?
there. No, sir.
Nothing, sir.
Any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor, we just have to inform you last time.
It's a true pleasure, Your Honor. All right.
Before defense calls our witness, we'd actually like to draw the court's attention to the stipulation. That is stipulation 11 about the potential causes of death. It states that being struck by an actual bullet is not the only potential cause of death listed by the coroner. Another potential cause of death is being struck in the skull by a malfunctioning blank cartridge. Did I understand?
Yes, Your Honor, that's our understanding of that stipulation, but as Mr. Stock explained, one of the potential causes that the coroner determined was being hit with an actual.
Additionally, Your Honor, we'd like to draw your attention to stipulation 14, which states that Exhibit 7 is admissible without objections at any time. We move to admit Exhibit 7 now. Any objections?
No objection to that, Your Honor.
Submitted. At this point, defense calls legacy language. Would you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Hi, I'm Legacy Lynn.
What do you do for a living, Miss Lambert?
I own the Lambert Family Farm.
What kind of work do you do at Lambert Family Farm?
I help plan out acts, I hire performers, I pay the bills, there's a lot that goes into running the business.
Why are you here today?
Here for my carnival. I mean, this carnival has been in my family for generations. We've really prided ourselves on creating memories that last a lifetime. And now people are here saying that we don't care about the performers that make that very thing happen. It's not true. It's not how it should be.
Let's talk about the plan. Are you familiar with Max Maximilian?
I am. He was one of our acts last summer.
If you could flip to Exhibit 2 in that binder. This is for you.
Okay.
What is that?
This is a contract between Max and an LLC.
What does that contract say about Max's act?
It says that Max understands that magic can be dangerous. And he accepts that.
Did Max sign, I understand my trip can be dangerous?
He did. He signed right here. I was there when he signed.
Don't you know that you said the contents of the contract?
It's pre-admitted.
That's my understanding as well.
My apologies, John.
Let's talk about whether you did everything possible to make that trip safe. Because the plaintiff said in their opening statement that y'all didn't take safety precautions. Is that true?
No.
What safety precautions did you implement?
We had safety coordinators, we had trainings, we even had a system in place to make sure that our crops would be safe.
Who did you hire to make sure your crops would be safe?
Angel Ash,
Let's be upfront. When you first hired Angel Ashmore, did he have a lot of experience?
he had just graduated college, he was an assistant.
Did he gain experience?
Absolutely. I mean, he worked his way up the ranks, he's been with us for years.
What kind of things would Mr. Ashmore do to keep crops safe?
Before any act ever took the stage, he would take a look at every crop and ask, are they in a good condition? If there was ever a crop that could potentially be unsafe, he would submit a request to me, either to repair it or to replace it entirely.
Did y'all do that for Max's crops?
Yes, as we did for everyone.
How many of Max's crops did y'all agree to either repair or replace?
All of them. I approved all of them.
The plaintiff told us today during their opening statement that maybe a bullet was loaded in that gun. Can I approach the witness with a copy of Exhibit 7?
Sure.
What is that?
So this is an image of blank cartridges, and it looks like the one that Angel had purchased.
Objection, Your Honor, to lack of foundation on the paper.
Yeah.
As to how this witness specifically is able to tell the difference between blank cartridge image and real bullets, we have no foundation as to her experience or familiarity with either of these two things, so for her to conclude that one is a blank and one is a bullet, is lacking foundation.
Response.
Your Honor, that's what we're about to get into, that they are visibly different, that they can easily be seen, that they're not the same just by looking at them. That it would be very, very difficult to mix those two up because of how different they are.
I'll hold off ruling until we hear that, so I guess staying and then.
Yes, Your Honor.
Re-raise though if you don't feel like that's.
Yes, Your Honor.
So, do those blanks and bullets look the same?
No, I mean, you can see here how different they look, right? The blanks, they have these red, almost star-shaped
pictures on the top of them, they're kind of crimped, right? The bullet doesn't have that.
Your Honor, I just want to re-raise my objection to the lack of foundation, if I may explain.
Yeah.
This witness is certainly able to testify that these two things look different, but she can't go a step further and say that the ones in the back, those three are blanks, and the first one is a bullet, and there's no foundation as to how she would be able to know which one of them is a blank and which one of them is a bullet. We need to hear more about her familiarity, her training, her expertise, and we've heard none of that.
Response. That foundation is actually already on the record. Opposing counsel admitted Exhibit 3, which talks about the purchasing of those blanks and bullets.
Responsible?
Sure.
We don't believe that exhibit 3 talking about the fact that she approved her purchase of blanks and bullets is sufficient foundation for her to be able to look at the two of them and tell which one is which.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna sustain, we have that they look different, we need to know how she knows which one is which.
Yes, Your Honor, I should just strike those parts of the testimony as to which one is which.
Yeah.
Yes, Your Honor.
Sniper, plaintiff told us earlier today that the budget was a concern for you. Is a budget a factor in decision making?
Of course. We are a business. At the end of the day, we always have to consider costs. It becomes a balance. How do we balance that cost, that budget, while prioritizing the safety of our customers and of our employees?
Did you ever want to compromise safety?
No.
Did you ever want to compromise Max's safety?
No. Listen, he was a crowd favorite. The people, they loved him. His success was our success.
Let's talk about whether the plaintiff accepted the risks of that trip. How did the plaintiff prepare for the act?
Like all other acts he practiced.
They were watching practice.
I did. The day before the show.
Or were
It was, I was watching from the stands, Max and Gabby, they were on the stage.
what did you see?
I see Gabby. She's aiming the gun at Max. Except she's not aiming it directly at him, just a little off to the side. I mean, look great. It's hard to tell the difference.
How did Max react when that gun wasn't aimed directly at his skull?
Gestured at her, started pointing here. But aim it here. It'll look more realistic that way.
And what were you thinking when your performer pointed at his own skull?
I was nervous, you know, I wanted this trip to be exciting and thrilling, but the thought of a performer pointing a gun at his head, I asked him, are you sure you want to do it like that?
What do you say?
He said, the trick is dangerous, no matter what. May as well make it look good for the audience.
How did you react when he said that?
I'm not a performer, right? I can say whatever I want. I'm not gonna be up on that stage with you today. So I asked him, just please think about it.
How do you respond?
He said, I want it.
Nothing.
Yes, Your Honor. Morning, Ms. Lambert, or good afternoon, sorry. Good afternoon. Ma'am, I want to start off right where you left off on direct examination with that conversation you were telling us about with Mr. Maximilian.
Sure.
You said that he said he wanted to do the bullet catch trick?
Well, he said he wanted to do it this way, pointing the gun at him.
Right, he said, I want you to point the gun right here.
Right, he wanted it pointed directly at him.
Remember, you remember answering questions before today's trial, right?
I do.
In a sworn deposition.
That's correct.
You spoke with me, you spoke with Mr. Stahl. I did. You recognize a copy of that deposition I will show to you today.
Yes, I believe I will.
Do you have access to it in that binder in front of you? I will flip to that copy. motion goes in I have it. All right, ma'am, in this deposition, you tell us that you live in a motor coach. Yes. You tell us what your great grandparents do for a living.
That's right, well, they own the Lambert family farm.
Now, I'm gonna hand you a pencil. I want you to circle where in that deposition you mentioned this conversation that you had with Mr. Maximilian about the bullet catcher.
I was told to only answer the questions asked. I mean, I was never asked if or when I saw the trick happen.
Ma'am, you were asked about your interactions with Mr. Maximilian in the lead up to that night, weren't you?
I was asked specific questions, but I was never asked anything about if I had ever seen him perform it or practice it.
Right, but you were asked about your interactions.
Sure, I mean, we talked about the bullet catch.
And you didn't think it was relevant to include that he mentioned that he wanted his assistant to point the gun directly at his head.
So I'm just doing what you guys told me to do. I answered the questions that you guys asked me, and I was specific.
And that's yes to my question. The first time that any of us are hearing about this supposed conversation that you had with Mr. Maximilian is right now here in this court today.
Right, it's not disgusting.
All right, Anna, I want to take a second. It's a time question. How much was Mr. Maximilian's life worth?
I don't know how you expect me to answer that question.
You put a number on?
It's a lie.
Well, how about the cost of a brand new Block 22 handgun? Would you say his life was worth more than that?
Objection argumentative.
Sam, you promised to get Mr. Maximilian a brand new handgun.
I told him to the extent practical, yes.
He broke that promise.
We ended up finding a more cost-effective option that was just,
That's right. The more cost-effective option was to go to a local gun club and purchase a second-hand gun.
that's right, that's the route that we went.
You bought the cheapest gun you could find.
The cheapest gun.
Well, ma'am, isn't it true that you approved all of Mr. Maximilian's props at the lowest price point possible?
Right, I was given 3 price points and I chose the most economical one. That's not to say that was the cheapest one out.
The most economical one, the lowest price.
Sure, from the list that I was given.
All right, then I want to talk about these supposed safety precautions that you keep telling us you had. Because you talk about how you hired Mr. Ashmore to be your prop manager.
That's right.
When you hired him, he had 0 experience in prop management.
Yes, he was entry level.
Now, you said something interesting on direct examination. You said that he worked his way up the ranks. Do I have that right?
Sure, I mean, he started off as an apprentice, an assistant, and he worked underneath our head prop master. Right? He overtook him when he retired.
Sandra, there were no ranks.
There's the assistant and there's the prop master. He worked his way up.
Right, but when you hired Mr. Ashmore, you fired all the assistant prop managers.
That's right.
Right, then I want to talk about what else you might have done to save him. And you made a deal with Mr. Maximilian's life on the line, didn't you?
What do you mean by that?
You made a deal to extend your carnival's lease with the fairground owners.
That's right.
And the condition of that deal was that you promised those fairground owners that Mr. Maximilian would perform the bullet.
That's right. They were really obsessed with the bullet catch. I wanted to make it happen for them.
Even though Mr. Maximilian told you thought it was dangerous.
Yeah, well, most of his tricks were dangerous. That was part of the whole bit.
He told you that he thought the bullet catch trick specifically was dangerous.
Sure, he said that.
But you didn't care.
It was exciting, and he was okay.
Ms. Lambert, you needed that bullet catch trick to happen, no matter what.
That's true.
So you threatened Mr. Maximilian with a breach of contract lawsuit if he didn't do it, yes or no?
I reminded him of a contract that he had signed with us. Yes.
You reminded him of a contract that he signed with you? You told him you were gonna sue him if he didn't do it.
Exactly. He had agreed, per the contract, that we had the final say. I was reminding him of that.
So to be clear, you said to Mr. Maximilian, do the bullet catch trick, or I will sue you.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Meyer. I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Julie counsel asked you about the gun that you purchased for Max's house. Did you show that gun to Max?
Like I said, when they practiced the night before, that was the gun.
Did Max say, switch this gun out?
I mean, he didn't say any complaints to me about the gun, no,
Did Max say, I'm not comfortable using this gun?
never told me.
What did Max do?
My birthday. He used the gun. They did the trick.
Thank you, ma'am. Nothing.
Any recross?
No recross, Your Honor.
You may be excused for that. With that, that's your day one, Gauntlet. Also make your ballots, let me know.
No, I just have to.
You're all good to go. I will pass about the first orders first.
I thought you guys all did great. This was by far the best one I've seen today. Just some things for each of you. Gabby, I thought that was fantastic. I don't know if your acting background or what, but I think it was very well done. It's very easy to listen to, and you kind of almost forgot the attorney was there, which is what you want on direct. So I think that was well done. For Angel, I think on Cross, there was a really good use of the prior statement, so that's what you're going for, and that was well done. The way on Cross that the questions were asked with the implications, that it really didn't matter what the answer was, the implications in the question got the testimony that you wanted. So that was good, and then the last one, I think you gained a lot of credibility when you would admit things that weren't necessarily in your favor on some of these things, and you gain that credibility when you say bigger things, so that's great.
Yeah, everybody on both sides is really, really good. Okay, so Gabby, you were a fantastic actress. I mean, you played such a sympathetic character. It was really hard for anybody to come across you. And just because you could just tell how emotional you were about your relationship with Max. And so that's fantastic. Angel, I thought the character of Angel, I thought you played, that's a very difficult character to play, because well, you were in charge of the bullets. But I thought you remained extremely level-headed. You listened to questions, you responded just straight to the question. And I did find that there was a lot of sympathy in your voice and in your portrayal about what happened. So that was really great. Tab, wow, okay, you're a fantastic actor as well. I didn't expect the character to be an older character, and you portrayed that, like, you know, you're very experienced, and you definitely, it's a problematic character because of the history with the defendant, and I think you really kind of downplayed that history and made it all about this particular case, and I just did a fantastic job. I really thought you were very believable, and it kind of transported me into a different world. And then, let me see, I thought you were really great. Again, you're a problematic character, but I think you downplayed, you know, the fact that there was trouble, financial trouble, and I love that you got the contract out through her. That's really important. I didn't realize there was some assumption of the risk language in the contract, so that was really good. I don't think that this character, and it was great that you called him on trying to introduce the bullet testimony about that exhibit. This is not the character to get it through. So there was there's nothing you can do to get that in through her, because it's just not the right character to get that exhibit in. And I thought that you definitely, as far as the theory of the case, the assumption, affirmative defense, assumption of the risk, I thought you got it out really well through that character.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think that all of you are very talented and very fantastic. Just some minor notes. I know that it's mock trial and you're on really tight times, and this is my least favorite comment to get or to give ever. But especially for the plaintiff's first witness, Gray, it was too fast. Especially like given her like relationship with the guy who died, like what was there was phenomenal, but there were probably 2 or 3 times where it would have been really effective to let silence just hang for a little bit, and you were really fast with the next question trying to go through it. So I know that you have like such little time, but there's just got to be somewhere that you can trim out, like maybe something that's not as important, and let there be like uncomfortable pauses after she gives uncomfortable answers, and like get used to that, like kind of just letting it hang, because there would be really funny moments, and then you would kind of just immediately jump into the next thing, and it didn't get to hang as much as it could have been. I, at the end of this direct, felt a little confused about what their relationship was, because like it sounded almost like it was romantic, but then it was maybe more like mentor-mentee, and then it was very surprising to find out later that she like asked him to marry her. So what I would say is like play up more that it was like a mentor-mentee relationship thing, and then you can deal with like, okay, yeah, like my wires got a little crossed and I once asked him to marry me, but like it didn't actually happen, and like it can be, but it came across like she was just kind of like a speck of dust in the wind, and she didn't really know what she wanted to do, and like she happened to land as like this guy's assistant. Like what would make more sense to me is like maybe she actually like really kind of had like developed a passion for like magic and illusion and sleight of hand and stuff while she was like working at these prop shops or whatever, and that like the reason that she's so like that she loves him so much is that like he taught her the business, and like she's really passionate about it, and she really wants to do it, and then I think you have more cover for like when she has to admit later that she wanted to marry him. It makes sense, and then it even gives the guy that died more like, okay, like he was a really good mentor, like he take advantage or anything like that. Like he actually really was just like a good, like awesome good mentor. So for the defenses, first witness Ashmore, it probably was like a planned scripted thing, but it sounded like you almost sorry, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. It sounded like you almost like interrupted him at one point. Like you were prompting him and like you said his name, but then he wasn't done with his answer, and it made it look like you had interrupted him, and it might have been another thing where it was just happening too fast. And if there were like if there were more of a pause, then you would earn more and it would make more sense and more justified to be like prompting him along. But the way that it came off is like he had ended his like answer or like not ended his answer like 2 seconds earlier, and you like prompted him along. It was like, okay, give him like a second to give more of his answer. And then the ending felt, this is another comment about time, but the ending felt kind of abrupt because it's like this very dramatic, like death in arms scene, and you kind of just, like, it just felt very abrupt. Like there's gotta be like some kind of like capper that you can put on. I mean, for what it was, I thought you were really effective at like describing at portraying what someone who like had been through the trauma of somebody like dying in their arms essentially, but that like it just, and then it like you didn't do it is what it felt like. Like there needed to be like a capper at the end that's like maybe like how it impacted him, or like I don't know if the guy has a family or whatever, but it was like it just felt like a big buildup of emotion that like never went anywhere. Is at least what it felt like to me. So just kind of trying to quickly get through this. So for the plaintiff's second witness, the investigator, I thought you were phenomenal overall. Only thing I would say is that I don't buy that like a really seasoned law enforcement officer would be dismissive about like his title. And I know it's a joke, like there's nothing special about being an agent, it's a special agent, but like I mean, what makes sense to me is that law enforcement officers tend to be like pretty insistent on like that level of respect. And they're very similar to judges where like they just think of it as part of their name, like judge whoever or agent whoever. And so that was the only part that I didn't quite find, is that my experience with like longtime law enforcement officers is that like it's music to their ears to hear their title and their name, special agent, whatever, or agent, whatever. Like, and so that was it was the very beginning. So that it just like I didn't buy it, but then everything else was like what's going on.
I'm so sorry to butt in here. Unfortunately, we do have a small advocates meeting coming up after this round. So I'm gonna go ahead and pause comments here.
Yeah.
And if people have individuals, they can go up and ask them, ask the advocates just to prepare from there, and then we can have that small meeting right after this. Sorry about that, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.